So welcome back. Now we begin with our discussion panel, Designer Skill Sets in a Climate Neutral Economy. Today, during the whole day, of course, we have heard several interesting insights to both to the world of business and academy. To further investigate these possibilities, opportunities, and challenges education is facing at this moment of urgency around climate and ecosystems, we have invited a group of specialists to join us and converse over new designer skill sets that could take us forward. So it's my pleasure to introduce you the panelists today here with me. We start there with Red House, who I already introduced before, but the people who have joined us a little bit later. Then a devout practitioner of sustainability, a designer and senior researcher at ECA. Next to Red, we have Oksana Skorbatyuk, and she's the demand generator coordinator at Lindström, a company that spans over 24 countries and really has, well, I can say, put on full speed mode in reaching full circularity very, very soon. And then I have here on my left hand, Silke Leisa, sustainable marketing expert, the founder of Gegenpo, a company that helps create sustainable brand identities. And with us online from UK, we have Dilys Williams. So Dilys, hi.
Greetings.
Greetings. So also Dilys was introduced before, but the newcomers, Dilys is the Director of Centre for Sustainable Fashion and Professor of Academic Leadership at the London College of Fashion, UAL. And joining us from Finland is Kirsi Niinimäki. Kirsi, can we also...
Hi, here I am.
Hi, hello, Kirsi. Hope that the weather is better there in Finland than it is here. So Kirsi is Associate Professor at the Department of Design at Aalto University, also a profound background in sustainable design research and the leader of Fashion and Textiles Futures Research Group. So I would like to start with a little reflection on the current status. How do you think this current crisis will influence the future of fashion industry? I will. Let's start here.
Okay. Well, I think it already started that it influences the industry, because when I have been back to Germany during the lockdown, and what I saw there is that we reached the end consumers with this crisis that happened. People started to realize, usually this topic is so far away from end consumers that what about sustainability? They still go shopping. They do not care that much. But what happened during the crisis is that I saw so many people who realized, oh, I'm not allowed to go, so maybe I do not need it. So that's why they stood at home. And then there were other people who reacted very interestingly. They said, well, now I understand that all those workers in these countries like Bangladesh or India cannot be paid. So I should run to H&M, for example, to support them. So very contradictory reactions, but you can see it influences already. So that, that's what I thought about it.
Thank you, Silke.
Maybe not from so much from fashion, but from demand's point of view, that maybe you don't need so much to own so much, and you can actually rent more. It's of course our core business as well, and I'm thinking from that point of view all the time that we don't need as much, and we can just produce less and use more. And I think this gave us time and possibility to think more about these kind of topics.
Yeah, one thing definitely what is happening is because of the crisis, we have a lot of unsold stock, and for the bigger companies facing a huge amount of unsold clothes, like post-consumer waste, because we are kind of, by 2025, we have to collect all the post-consumer waste as well. I really can see that big companies, they are struggling with the current business model, and I think the next year will definitely show us quite clearly how it goes. I think a lot of bigger companies will not be able to survive.
We heard some answers from, I would say, also from kind of entrepreneurial side of view. Kirsi, what are your thoughts? You're of course actively also engaged with circular business models, but from an educator's perspective.
Yes, I think that the crisis is always opportunity also to make changes, and I think that what has been positive in this crisis that actually a lot of this kind of like background information which are not so visible for consumers, for example, the manufacturing conditions in lower cost countries are now visible. So I think that there's a lot of possibilities to really point out some systemic problems in the fashion which normally are not so visible for the consumers. And in Finland, for example, we have tried we have started different kind of campaigns. So one campaign actually was that we raised local fashion companies, that those ones who are really doing ecological and environmental friendly fashion. So actually there are possibilities to also consume differently. And what has also been quite positive, that there are also companies who are trying to challenge their own business thinking because of the crisis. So there has been a lot of creativity existing throughout the crisis, but I'm quite sure that this will change everything. We are not going to go back to the normal. So this is also a possibility to really make bigger changes in the fashion system.
And Dilys, do you also have some thoughts you would love to share?
Yes, thank you, Brett. I mean, I think that, as people have already said, the crisis has actually shown that we can change quite quickly. I think if anybody had said that we needed to change our habits so dramatically before the crisis, people would have thought it wasn't possible. So it shows that change is possible. I think we've seen that the link between the three elements of a personal health crisis with COVID, the sort of societal health crisis of inequality, we've seen through Black Lives Matter and other kind of manifestations of the social injustices coming to light, and then how that all is part of the planetary health crisis is really clear. And, we all know there's never going to be a vaccine for climate emergency. It's about us changing. So that, on the one hand, is incredibly important. I think we've got this dichotomy of those who say that this is a means to be more bold, and nobody that we work with, and we work with businesses large and small and students from all different places, nobody has said that the planetary health crisis is less important. However, because of the short-term implications of such a dramatic change, a lot of people are still grasping onto what was and trying desperately to fix things and to sell more stuff and to deal with the overstock that they've got and to discount it. So we are in a moment of great opportunity. However, how we seize that opportunity and what we see as important from an ecological and economic perspective is kind of up to us to really keep ramping up, because I think now is a time for really bold action. And if we're not careful, the short-termism will kind of take over from the bigger picture. So I think it's important that we're having this conversation here together now.
Yes, I believe that really that the situation has kind of played a good test bed into our hands, and we should take advantage of the situation. Now, narrowing down to our panel's main topic, which evolves around FashionSEEDS and how to educate new wave of designers. It was mentioned quite many times during the previous presentations that FashionSEEDS, in order to create a holistic framework for educators, identifies itself through different pillars. It's we have the environmental sustainability, we have the economic sustainability, social sustainability, and cultural sustainability. But do we have actually a good set of policies to support this diversity of sustainability holistically?
Of course, that's a good question, and there is not a simple answer to that. I mean, if we see what is the situation, then of course some issues are more urgent than the other ones. But in the end, we really have to kind of see it all holistically, and we have to, follow the. For example, I think these 4 pillars, actually, they explain really well what sustainability is. But during my practical work and practical studies and long years all over the globe, I would say the social and environmental issues are, of course, completely out of balance. And the reason is that we just haven't been paying enough attention to these topics many years. So there are areas when we are talking about sustainability, what actually has to be a little bit kind of put a little bit more effort in. And my personal opinion is that the environmental issues definitely are the first one, because we just have been consuming way too much and haven't kind of
been a bit disrespectful.
Well, let's say that way. We haven't been in the love relationship with our nature, yes.
From our business point of view, being sustainable is being profitable. So I believe that if you have this mindset, you can be holistic in this sense. But biggest struggle here is awareness and demand. And I believe that EU is already taking some actions, but locally here, I really feel that from policies and governmental laws and lawmaking, we're not setting example yet to be more sustainable, because it's not only for businesses, it's for environment. It's a bigger picture. So there is a long way to go yet.
So you see you're actually making more initiative yourself within the company.
Yes, at the
comparison.
moment. And we see that people don't know that you can make more sustainable choices without making a lot of extra efforts, buy or rent, as I previously mentioned. But at the same time that question everything, where it comes from and so on. But we're still business, so for us it's profitability as well. But awareness is something what here with Red and everybody we're working on, and I think this is from this marketing point of view. Silke can probably talk about it more.
Yeah, I would also say this awareness aspect and how to educate the consumers. That's one of the biggest issues that I'm facing with brands and companies and marketing topics. But there's also the other thing. If you look at brands, for example, I think they talk about sustainability a lot. They try, but they do not really place it in the core of their business. And as long as we do not do that, that all of us, as a consumer, as a company, as a brand, if we really bring it alive, then all the inventions, everything, it doesn't make sense at all. It will never make it up to a bigger scale so that it can change the harmful things that we did in the past. So I would really like to encourage everybody who's talking about those topics to live it instead of just talk about it. And I see, of course, small examples that we can bring them up. Your company is doing great, but again, every time you have the possibility to talk about it to your consumers, show it wherever you can. We have to be bold. That's my point.
But you, as a marketing expert, somebody who steps into companies as an external person, usually, do you see there has been a change in trying to set a different mindset, trying really hard now in the light of these new laws that have been put up during the past few years, and then we know that we really face a deadline of basically 4.5 years to really do something more drastic than just right now, just taking back items and giving little vouchers of minus 10% back. But you really have to deal with this, what you take back.
Yeah, I see a couple of examples, and there are good ones, and there are ones who are not really able to tackle it as good as they could. But it always comes back to what I just said. Those big companies, they understand that their time is running out. They have to start changing. But what they actually do is they add on a communication layer. they do not really put it into the core of their brand and anchor it there. As soon as you start doing that, like I just heard this morning from somebody speaking about circularity, that you have to start with the design. So it's the same thing with the brand. You have to start within your brand core. And as long as you do not go there, and if you're not brave enough to really work on that deep level of your existence, then it stays an add-on on your communication level. And that you can see, it turns out as greenwashing easily.
That's true. I'd give word also to our online speakers today, panelists.
Yes, perhaps I can say something for this. Well, the whole sustainability is so complex problem that we really have to approach that holistically and think about the system level change. And of course, that's not quite easy task to do. And all stakeholders are really needed for this change. So, and of course, we need different levels and different approaches, different kind of problem solving throughout the system, so that we can really make transformation in the industrial system. And that's really not easy. So, if you think about the fashion system, so we really have to slow down. So, the scaling and time actually are quite critical issues in there. And of course, this policy making is quite important part of this system level change. So, different kind of regulations can really change or force the change to happen, but then we need this kind of forerunning companies who actually shows like a good example how you make the change and what kind of issues actually can you still do in your business and still be profitable, because of course that's sustainable economies actually, that still the companies can somehow function even if they are trying to change their business thinking or their systems on functioning. So that's quite critical. And here actually we need quite wide collaboration, and everyone is really needed. Different kind of knowledges are needed while we are trying to make the transformation.
And yes, thanks, Pirette. I think it's a really critical question. And I think that thinking about policy in relation to the 4 pillars, we do have some great examples. The Sustainable Development Goals actually cover all of the pillars. And the Paris Agreement, it makes it really clear what we need to do. And particularly in fashion, we've got the UN Fashion Charter for climate action now. So there are some things in place. The EU has got some great regulations coming through. The UK, the Environmental Audit Committee, put forward some key recommendations about extending producer responsibility, etc. I better not get into politics because we might be here all day. And the UK hasn't yet taken up those recommendations, but I think that there are some really important policy recommendations in train. However, governments are still enabling the addiction to consumption. There is not yet policy even being talked about that is going to be about stopping this addiction to growth and consumption as the means to prosperity. And actually, all governments need to recognize that nature is the only source of prosperity. Until that happens, all we're going to be doing is kind of skating around doing small incremental things. But the big change needs to be that legislation needs to recognize the value of nature and the fact that human ingenuity and labor is the facilitator for the economy. So until that happens, we've got a long way to go. So I think we still need to push for more policy change that isn't just about fixing the small bits. It's also about this more fundamental shift of what we value. And I think that actually the cultural pillar is so critically important. That's why we've looked at it particularly in this project, because a lot of people look at the other 3 pillars, because until socially acceptable practices change, until we call governments to account, businesses to account, and ourselves to account around what is acceptable practice in relation to climate emergency, we're not really going to shift things. So that's why also that fashion is important in this, because it can change what is socially acceptable. And the previous presentation talking about fashion revolution was a case in point. You know, we've got a chance through fashion to actually really stand up for the things that matter and to have a place in policy making and in policy influence. And I think for all of us, for me, coming from a background as a fashion designer, finding myself speaking in government has been quite challenging, but also actually really makes me remember and realize the power of fashion to change things.
I think Red can also reflect on these matters of speaking to the government and really trying to push through some of the messages that that need to be considered and need to be taken care of, and it's quite a brick wall to go through.
Yeah, that's true, and I think one really critical topic is just to understand who should take the responsibility. Is it the private sector or is it like governments? And I think this discussion has been going really way too long time, because that's something we just have to decide to take the next step.
Yeah, but your comment actually leads me to the next thought or the next question. So how is basically, well, this goes out to both sides, both industry and academy. How is your company / institution actually addressing these problems? And I would maybe like that Oksana would answer this as a representative of a very big company, because we see that although Red, you've been around for so many years, and I think you've a great example to give to people interested in sustainability and development. Still, in size, there's also strength. So could you, Oksana, elaborate of the progress you've been trying to take forward?
Yeah, so it starts from our business model. So we're renting textiles on circular economy business structure. So one garment, for example, workwear, is in cycle for as long as possible. So it starts with the design of this garment. So it has to be very multifunctional and very strong. But at the end of the life cycle, we have to do something with these textiles. And this is, at the moment, we have some good solutions, but they're not very good for the mixed fibers. And we took a bold statement for 2025 to be to go on a full circularity, what means that nothing goes to waste anymore. At the moment, there is a percentage what goes, but most of it goes to for burning, what is not the best solution, but at least it doesn't make more to landfills. But the biggest challenge is, and I see that from us as a company from one side, that we're creating this map of possibilities, what we can do with the textiles after they lived it. It helps the industry to develop in more better ways that can all other companies use this system as well. And from the other side, we acknowledge that what type of designers or collaborations we need. Today there was so much talk about different kind of materials and collaborations, etc. And here we see that it's such a big field and there's so many players, and designers cannot be designers anymore. And actually it has been said so many times that they have to be this part of this cross-functioning team with bioscientists, with designers, product designers, to see all this value chain of one resource and to see that it's not waste, but it's next resource to something next, and so on and so on. So for us, it's a huge challenge. It's a bold statement, but I see that we broke it down to really small pieces. We have done a lot of work from design solutions to our products, but there is a huge way to go, and it's not impossible. Definitely.
I love the optimism, because it is, I think it's a ballsy statement to go to go for full circularity in a very big company, because in smaller companies we're much more flexible and more able to adapt faster to these new ideas and thoughts, and becoming better and better. But you already reflected a little bit about you need like a super functional designer, but what kind of professions, when we speak about fashion design, or let's say fashion and related fields like textiles and accessories, what kind of designer profiles do we need? And that question, I would love to get an answer from all of our panelists today. It's very important.
As I mentioned, that it's not only about designing something beautiful, it's about thinking through a whole value chain to understand really where it comes from and what it becomes next. So I think it might be one person, it might be a group of people, it might be collaboration, because at the end of the day, we want to stay what we're good at. We're at our core business, and we want to build ecosystem of small collaborations who are good at their core business. And I think that creates this kind of, this is the, I believe, future for any industry, not only fashion. But
as I'm not out of the industry itself, so I'm not dealing with.
But you're a flaneur. You're observing it all the time.
Yeah, I do. But what I see also from the designers that I work with, more graphic designers, for example, I see that those people are not educated about those sustainability topics in general. It's not part of their education right now. So that would be a great start. It would be mandatory for them to understand it, to become aware of all of those things. And I would really love to see those new people, if it's fashion design or whatsoever, to be kind of sustainable native. As we always speak about digital natives, I want people to be sustainable native again. So looking at our grandparents, for example, they were this kind of people. They did not question if it makes sense to repair something or reuse it or share or whatever. It was just natural for them. So this basic attitude I would like to see from future designers. Then all the other things that you just said, that things are not just beautiful, that they are also meaningful, that would be great. And the other thing is that I feel that the people are not educated to identify real needs so well. For example, if you look at methods like design thinking, then it's absolutely obvious that you have to dive into your field and realize what your clients or what the people in general need. And then you invent for them something which they really want. And then it will be used anyways much better than just because it's beautiful and then you throw it away.
Functionality.
Yeah, we have been talking about that a lot, but still, this kind of life cycle thinking, I think, is necessary for the designer in the fashion or textiles or accessories. That really the designer knows exactly where the raw material comes from, how it's made, what can you make out of it, what kind of material actually is recyclable, how to upcycle, how to basically the one thing what we see in our fashion education here in Estonia is that, of course, one reason is that a lot of manufacturing is not happening in Europe anymore, and we don't even have possibility to show the students how the real production works. So it's difficult to give the overall picture, but I think it all starts with this kind of real work, because design is very, very practical job to do, and you really have to understand deeply every single step in that, and also really the end of the life, the last part of the product, really how to design the products, what you really can take back. For example, the Lindström business model is really just renting, and that's why they have to think about it. What will they do with the products? But other producers, their business model is completely different. And I think that's why the France example is very, very good. Since 2020, they have let's say the brands, they have to take back their own post-consumer waste. So they have to take responsibility, and that will show us really, really well how that actually works in the real life. If the fast fashion companies or the other fashion companies, if they have to take the responsibility and they have to kind of circulate the leftovers back inside the area where they actually operate. And we don't have that knowledge right now out there, and we are completely, and we see it every day. We really miss this kind of designers who could actually see the life cycle fully.
Kirsi?
Yes, I'm happy to continue from this, and I totally agree. So actually, design skills and creativity skills are really important ones, but we should really begin to design not products, but actually life cycles. And hopefully all products have 2 or 3 different life cycles. So it's like a continuous processes that we should actually aim for, this kind of closing the material loops. That will be the future of fashion totally. But I also see that we can use our creativity in so many ways. And I really think that we should educate like a future's change makers, so that they are quite capable of doing collaboration with different kind of disciplines. or stakeholders, they are able to facilitate different kind of like a discussions or dialogue. And they have to be able to communicate visually or verbally, and even towards the policymakers. So I think that we can use our creativity in so many other ways than designing products, and I think that that's something that designers should be able to do, and even challenge the business thinking that how actually what people really need and what is the behind of this fashion consumption. So this kind of even these empathic skills are really important. We are trying to also include consumers as a stakeholders in this transformation process. So I think that we can use our creativity in so many other ways than just doing product design.
And Dilys.
Hi. Obviously this question is at the heart of FashionSEEDS project. What kinds of designers do we need? And not only from the perspective of the skills that they have, but also their capabilities and the agency that they have to be able to create change. And I love the previous comment about becoming sustainability natives, because actually sustainability is a habit of thought and mind. It's not just about having information about product, material, contents, etc. So I think that's where education is really important, because to go back to what I previously said about this sort of change in consciousness, if we're looking at transformation across 3 levels, the first being awareness raising and realizing and taking account of where we are. The second being about ideating and creating new products, services and systems, but within an existing worldview. What we really wanted to be able to do through thinking about designers of the future is to be able to shift this consciousness to this sense of interbeing, understanding our cause and effect in the world. And that has to happen at not only the level of data and understanding information, but absolutely at the level of understanding what it means to be human. And that is what critical education is about, really exploring our place in the world. And through working with businesses large and small, we see that manifesting in lots of different ways. And Rita obviously has a great example of her own business. But we work a lot with small businesses, and when they are values-led and knowledge-based, they can create completely new iterations of what it means to be a designer. And we're already now collecting an evidence base of lots of different kinds of ways in which this new kind of thinking is manifesting. So it's really exciting to see, but at the moment, all of those great ideas are outsized by the fact that big business is still operating in a way that doesn't actually understand its interrelationship with nature. So I think we've got a new kind of designer at small scale, but also at large scale. We work with a lot of designers in big businesses, and there it's also about their agency. What can they do to create change within the system that they're already part of? And sometimes it's overlooked and everybody thinks that you can't make change from within, but I think that making change from within is absolutely critical. So supporting graduates who go on to work in big businesses as well as setting their own businesses up, I think is critically important.
Yeah, I think we broadened the scope, yes, from skills to actually mindsets as well. Next to it, it's not just what we can physically do or what kind of assignments we can solve, but how we think next to it and what we want to express to people around us, to nature around us. But just again, returning to Lindström, actually, because you. I don't know if you've had a conversation within the company, because you are very much a front runner and looking into the future. What would the designer CV, or I don't know whether it's a conversation, need to look like? That you would start thinking, okay, that's the right person to add to the team. And let's say you'll do this thing what I just asked you to envision in 5 years' time.
I think the first thing we don't see in CV, but we see in the eyes. That
yes, let's say that's why I said maybe it's a conversation, actually.
Yeah, it's in the eyes because it has. I think everybody who works in Lindström, no matter are you in India, in China, we do have offices there as well, and our services, or you are in UK or here in Estonia. Something connects us. This purpose or our values are connected, and our caring culture, and I think this is something what we have to see in designer's eyes that he or she or they see the whole picture, and it's in their heart that to do some change, I think, because I see that our business is a bit unsexy for fashion, I think, because it's industrial workwear or so. But at the same time, we can make big changes, and our some models can be, I don't know, used in fashion industry. Why not? We have very cool produce on demand. How to call it, factory nearby, and why not to implement this business model to others? But I think, yes, it's what you see in person's heart, eyes, or this.
Do you want to add? No, because I would really. It seems to get more and more about soft values. So I'm going to actually bounce this idea back to our online panelists and ask, how then should we teach these soft values? How can we educate? Because this is a much tougher chore than teaching students about the particles of the materials, or teaching about pattern, or how to wisely use up the fabric. How to teach these soft values of empathy, of having the right mindset.
If I can answer for this, so I think that we really have to quite foundational think about our pedagogy and what kind of designers actually we are educating, and the whole skill set of designers. So and we really have to change the attitude that we shouldn't place the creativity so strongly in the center, so that it's like a one individual person, that we have to change even the words that we are using, that it's not me, it's actually we, that we should place in the focus, that actually we are solving these problems together. And I really like this kind of quite experimental way of educating futures designers, so that there are this kind of constructivist learning in the center, that people are solving real life problems together. So it might also be that there are different disciplines, different knowledge areas present, and of course then you increase your knowledges, learn new skills, but it's a lot about attitudes and values. And when you go into that level, then it's quite interesting. And I think that in Aalto we have this kind of principle that we should integrate sustainability to all our courses, and of course that's a challenge for us. So we shouldn't have this kind of traditional design courses at all anymore. We should always include some level of sustainability into our education, and there we have to discuss about values, the value base of designing or problem solving in general, who have actually towards what we are contributing with our design. And of course, the idea is that then through this kind of education is possible even to touch the attitudes, that how we actually respect each other's understanding as well as the nature. So then actually we can even begin to talk about that, well, actually nature, environment is one stakeholder in the fashion system. And that's actually quite interesting, that when you go to this value base, so it's much easier to take in the sustainability in that sense. Oh yeah, I can still add actually what Dilis was saying earlier. So Dilis was saying that we need a lot of much more knowledge in action. But I think that this constructivist learning actually goes in this, that we need shared activities to build new kind of knowledge. So actually that which combines all kind of knowledge, is the soft side of science, this kind of design creativity as well as the scientific knowledge. So that's something that we should try to do, that we really also try to renew the curriculum, but also renew the knowledge that we are building through our research, for example.
Yeah, thanks, Kirsi. Good to see you. And just to refer back to, so for us, again, correct, that's another of the questions that's fundamental to the FashionSEEDS project, which is why we've looked at these 8 pedagogies and then looked at how they cross-reference the 3 different scales of transformation. So Julia was talking about the ways in which we are putting that into practice through the project. But I think we're learning as we're going and learning by doing. And I think that this idea of also the mutual learning, that our roles as tutors is not a hierarchical role. And it is a challenge for us as tutors and for learners, because some learners have come from backgrounds that they do expect a hierarchy, and they expect the tutor to be the one that is all knowledgeable, and they're there to learn. So I think we've also got to build in this sense of resilience, and teaching for resilience and being resilient ourselves. And I use the term resilience here not in the way that a lot of governments are using it, as this idea of bouncing back and being strong and fighting against, but more this ability to be porous and to be adaptive and to be open and to be able to listen. And it's only by practicing that ourselves that we can expect our students to experience it as well. So I think we've got to learn and change ourselves as designers and as tutors, as well as encouraging and nurturing the conditions for change. And it's not about us teaching about sustainability. It's creating conditions where learners can feel themselves as they're making decisions that are based on an understanding, that they're not doing it because we've asked them to or told them about it, but they're making their own decisions based on their own knowledge.
Yes, this is true, and I'm happy we're already trying to give some hints about how to approach as a tutor through the FashionSEEDS project to the other tutors as well quite soon. Now, our time is starting to run up, but I would just like to address one more topic that we have not discussed. We've spoken about certain attitudes, of course, being more educated already from scratch about sustainability, speaking about life cycles, so these kind of basic things. But what about digital knowledge next to it? How do we perceive this part in sustainability? Because it seems a bit like a far thing, a bit remote. It kind of doesn't take place in any of the pillars concretely, but it's still an important topic, and I think we have to discuss this, because we mention a lot the word nature, but digital world is moving alongside with us.
Well, actually, for me, this is like a tool that people can use if they really understand who they want to be in this design world. Of course, digital and technology innovations, they can enhance stuff, they can boost change, but I think what it all comes back to is that question, who do you want to be yourself? As a brand, a consumer, a student, a designer, whatever. And this actually, I just wanted to add to this question of how to educate students, because that's my understanding and my experience with my own students. They're basically management students, but still, when I ask them, who do you want to be in this system? This kind of wakes them up. And then they start thinking, oh my God, I'm playing a role myself. That's one thing. And the other thing is giving them access to people who lead by example. This is also one thing that really works well to make people aware. And if they are aware, then they can use all those technology things to enhance who they want to be. And the other thing is about communication, which I always feel all those new technologies and all the innovations, they do not make any sense. They will not ever make it to a bigger scale if people are not able to communicate why they're doing this and what it is meaningful for. So those things are, for me personally, actually more important than the technical developments themselves.
Being clear about what you are and what you say.
Yeah. I have a bit different example of technology. In our garments, we have RFID tags. So we know exactly, we don't know, like not like a Big Brother way, but after the garment goes through some certain gates, we know exactly where it is or what is within the product, how many times it was washed, how many users it has had. Not personal again. All our laws are very nice. But at the same time, it allows us to forecast more precisely it allows us not to have a too big of stock, so we can actually produce on demand. That this chip will send notification to our garment factory, and it produces in 48 hours. This person who is actually missing a garment will have again a new one. So this technology actually helps us to become more sustainable, and it gives us tools, as you said, from different perspective. And why not to again utilize it in everyday garments and everything? So it opens us a door, and it's a nice way to have it. Yes.
Yeah, and taking from here is something we were talking with Lindström last year, working with during the students project. But yes, one of the biggest problem what we are facing is that we really don't know. There is no transparency in the industry, and that would be definitely one very nice technological development, that we have chips in all our clothes, that we really kind of have, let's say, the product passport, that we know exactly where it comes from, how it's made, what's the raw material used, how much electricity has been used, water, etc. Because all this information is actually existing, but right now it's not put together. All the information lays around the globe, but this kind of technology would actually really help us to bring so much more awareness and light, and we would be able to make the step about recycling so much easier, that we could really separate. Because right now, even if we are collecting the post-consumer waste, we are not able to separate them properly, because we don't know about the clothes enough. So that's definitely one of the developments what will come, or already, I think Lindström is a good example how they have been using it already many years.
Dilis and Kirsi, any also ideas to sum up today's panel regarding the digital aspect?
Yes, I would like to add here that I really believe that digitalization is coming really strongly into this field, and it comes to all these fields. So it comes to design, manufacturing, consuming, doing business, and also recycling. And as previous presenter said, actually, also this kind of collecting information and throughout the supply chain, and how that links to transparency and product lifetime, for example, everything will change. Digitalization will provide us tools to make the total really big change in the system. So I'm quite sure that in the future we will know much more about the garment and its history, also the use phase, and might be that garment even tells you when it wants to go to recycling and which recycling path it will end up. So I'm quite sure that actually digitalization provides us tools to make a big change also from the sustainability perspective to fashion industry.
Thanks, Kirsi. And just to add to that, I mean, I think that the impact of digitization is dependent on the intention of what we're doing things for and why we're using the tools. So if the intention is to use digitization to sell more, then we're on a road to the edge of the cliff and over. If the ambition of the tools of digitization and the hands that they're in is to find a way in which we can put nature first and the economy within that thinking, then we've got great prospects. And obviously, digitization is part of our lives and is an incredible part of human ingenuity. And on a sort of practical local level, as a designer who's always used her hands to make things and has been a little bit of a digital Luddite, I found that creating a course online, which was something I was very hesitant in doing because I'm very much a studio person and prefer to be face to face. But we created a course, and we've had 68,000 learners, which is more people than I would ever be able to talk to or teach in a lifetime in the studio. So I've been proved wrong over what it means to have digital education, and I'm very happy to continue to be proved wrong on that one.
Thank you, Dilis, for those words. And thank you to our audience as well. As I said, our times today are very limited. And thank you to our panelists, Reet, Oksana, Silke, and Kirsi and Dilis abroad who have joined with us. So we hope that this conversation today has given and set a bit of a frame for these future designer skills that seem to be very necessary, and we would need to work towards them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.